Hi, we are from the class of EE610 7B from University Technology Mara, UITM Shah Alam. So today, we are going to have a video presentation regarding on the subject of Engineers in Society EEE610. As you can see here, we are going to have a presentations on Chapter 4, which is the Professional Ethics Code of Conduct. From this explanation, we are going to briefly review about what is the meanings of ethic, what is the code of conduct, why the professional ethics is important, what is the engineering ethics, and also how to solve the cases in engineering ethics. Before we went through the subtopic of this chapter, for your information, this presentation is prepared and presented by the four of us, which is firstly Said Zahiruddin, secondly Muhammad Arif Ashman, thirdly Nur Maisara, and lastly Nur Farah Arisa. Now, let's go briefly about what is the professional ethic is about and what is the subtopic included in this topic under the code of conduct. As you can see here, there are 5 subtopics that will be presented and explained by us. Firstly, introduction. This introduction will give you an idea or knowledge about what is ethics. Secondly, we have 4.1, which is the professional code of practice. Next, under 4.2 is listening and registrations. Other than that, we are going to briefly explain about the engineering ethics in 4.3. And lastly, in 4.4 is all about the method of analyzing and resolving cases in engineering ethics. Now, let's go through for each subtopic. Firstly, we are going to go through the most important part, which is introduction. As you can see here, from the introduction, there are 3 subtopics that will be explained by us. Firstly, to give you a better idea about this topic, we are going to explain about what is ethics. Through this, the definition of ethics and what is the ethical person can be gained. Secondly, the knowledge based on the difference between the morality and ethic is gained. As ethic has been defined before, here the briefly explanation about what is the definition of morality and how is these two are differ with each other. Thirdly, an explanation regarding to what is professional ethic, why professional ethic is important, what is the ethical behavior and unethical behavior at the workplace is explained. Enough with the introduction. Now let's go through the another subtopic under the code of conduct, which is 4.1, professional code of practice. For this professional code of practice, the briefly explanation about what is the code of practice is done. Also, in this code of practice, the written rules available for engineering professions is explained. In addition, the information about what is Board of Engineers Malaysia is also included. From this subtopic, you will know that there are many acts and regulations that is provided by Board of Engineers Malaysia (BEM) to be as a guideline for all engineers to do their work in an ethical way. Moving to another subtopic under the Code of Conduct is 4.2, Listening and Registration. For 4.2, Listening and Registration, the explanation regarding on what is listening and why listening is important to a professional engineer is gained. So firstly, in 4.2.1, the briefly explanation about what is the requirement, which is the qualification to be registered as a graduate engineer according to BEM is briefly explained. Other than that, under 4.2.2, the knowledge regarding to the list of professional body which are signatory of Washington Accord is also given. Next, moving to another subtopic under Code of Conduct is 4.3, Engineering Ethics. In this engineering ethics subtopic, there will be 3 subtopics that will be explained, which is firstly 4.3.1, Utilitarianisms, 4.3.2, Code of Ethics or Code of Conduct, and lastly 4.3.3, Professional Negligence and Liabilities. So, from 4.3.1, it will explain about what is the type of actions that should be held by an engineer. Other than that, in 4.3.2, Code of Ethics or Code of Conduct, this subtopic is actually explained about the most followed characteristic of all professional engineers in executing their professional fields of practice. And lastly, for 4.3.3, this subtopic will explain about the definitions of negligence and also liabilities. Enough with this subtopic. Let's go through the last subtopic under Code of Conduct, which is 4.4, the method of analyzing and resolving cases in engineering ethics. As you can see here, in 4.4, methods of analyzing and resolving cases in engineering ethics, there will be 5 subtopics that will be covered. Engineer must know or think on how to solve the problem as in engineer. So for this part, the various methods in solving problems is explained. There are 5 methods that will be presented, which is firstly in 4.4.1, solving problem from analytical issue methods. 4.4.2, using problem resolution method. Next, in 4.4.3, the methods of balancing. In 4.4.4, the casuistry methods. And lastly, 4.4.5, which is using the line drawing methods. Hence, all 5 subtopics under the Professional Ethics Code of Conduct has been explained. So now, let's hear clearly and understand for each subtopic that will be presented by us. What is ethics? From Oxford Dictionary, ethics is defined as a set of moral principles, especially one relating to or affirming a specific group's, fields, or forms of conduct. Ethics is a moral value of a person that shows how good the person is in his ways of life. It is also can be said as a guidance for a certain person, either in his way of life or in his fields of work. Being an ethic person, one must obey the rules set to achieve his goals in becoming a good person, and the person must be consistent in making a good for himself, religions, and also nations. Now you have clearly heard the definitions of ethics, but you must have been confused. What is the difference between ethics and also morality? For your information, morality refers to those standards of conduct that apply to everyone rather than to members of a special groups. Ideally, these standards are ones to every rational persons want every others to follow, even if everyone else following them would mean that he or she had to do the same. Now and then, we may change our views on how to interpret a particular rules or exception. For examples, we may have to think that it is possible to lie without saying anything false, for examples, by omitting some facts necessary for understanding what we do say. Just now, I have explained on what is ethic, but I'm pretty sure many of you are confused between what is the difference on ethics and morals. Hence, to end those confusion, I'm going to show you on one of the videos uploaded on YouTube by UVA Com Science Micro Lecturers. These videos show the difference between ethics and morals. So, let's see and hear the explanation together.
When discussing communication ethics, it's important to understand exactly what is meant by ethics. Sometimes people confuse ethics with behaving in accordance with social conventions, religious beliefs, and the law. And sometimes the term ethics and morals are used interchangeably, because they clearly are both related to right and wrong. However, they are not the same thing at all. Ethics refer to rules provided by an external source. They are governed by professional and legal guidelines within a particular time and place. Ethics are all about how we deal with gray areas, and ethics therefore refer to the value judgments we make on bigger and smaller matters, in communication as well as in other fields. A concrete example of ethics are codes of conduct in workplaces. Lawyers, policemen, and doctors all have to follow an ethical code laid down by their profession, regardless of their own feelings or preferences. In a specific communication setting, we can say that the Society of Professional Journalists Code of Ethics is a very good example. In this code, several principles of ethical journalism are included, with instructions on how to behave as an objective, transparent, and reliable journalist. In this code of ethics, we find principles such as seek truth and report it, and minimize harm for sources, subjects, colleagues, and members of the public. Morals refer to an individual's own principles regarding right and wrong. For example, a journalist may exaggerate a little to create a more sensational story. These principles are not written in legal guidelines, but are subject to one's own gut feelings about what is good or bad. And of course, most decisions are not captured in a code of conduct, but ask for people's personal cultural norms for dealing with issues. Then you really must trust your own moral compass.
Based on the video that have been shown, we can conclude that in sums, ethics is a rule by external sources, but morality is an individual's principles of what rights or bad. What is professional ethics? Well, professional ethics refers to those special morality permissible standards of conduct that ideally every member of a profession want every other members to follow, even if that would mean having to do the same. Ethics applies to members of groups simply because they are the members of that groups. It is also referred to a professional behaviors of a person's, organizations, or corporate member in any organizations. This indicates how profession members interact with each others and with the third parties. A person who is working in any fields or professions tend to have their specialist knowledge or skills in that area. The way to use the knowledge to serve to the public can be considered as a moral issue, and it is a terms of a professional ethics. The foods you eat, the car that you drive, and also the wire at your house, it is also needs to be designed with ethics in mind. Here, we can clearly see how professional ethics is important. Now, I will highlight the professional ethics in the professions. Professional persons can apply their knowledge, skills, making judgments, and make a good decisions in situations where no one can make that decision, because if they are not measuring or familiarized or even have a knowledge or skills in that field, it will be hard to solve the problem related to that area. In example, in counseling professions, it requires a strong morals and ethic aspects. Individuals seek to help for counselor as they are not in a positions to take basic decisions about what is right and wrong. They confused about taking decisions in their own problems. Hence, they seek help from the correct professionals field. As for that, medical ethics applies to people in medicines, business ethics apply to people in business, and engineering ethics applies to engineers. Engineering ethics is as much a part of what engineer in particular factor of safety, testing procedure, or ways to design for reliability, durability, and also economy. Engineering ethics is a part of thinking like an engineer. There are several reasons the needs of professional codes of ethics in working environments. The reasons are: firstly, it defines a standard relationship with clients and employees. Secondly, it symbolizes the professionalism of the groups. Thirdly, it protects the rights of each member in the organizations. Every profession tends to have a professional codes of conduct that needs to be implemented in working environments. It must comply with the laws and avoids any action that can discredit the professions. Because of that, professional bodies have guidelines to deal with complaints if unethical behavior happens. Unethical behavior in the workplace can be defined as any actions that does not conform to the standards of conduct established by the organizations. It can happen to all kinds of relations, either with clients or between the employees.
Well, we will now discuss certain common work ethics which every organization around the world today uses. So if you're working for any kind of company, any organization, these are certain common ethics which everyone wants you to follow. Let's understand what these ethics are. Well, the first ethic which people really want you to follow, or employers would want you to follow, are punctuality. You need to be punctual at workplace. Why punctuality? What I mean to say is, if you have a reporting time at 10 a.m. in the morning, try to be there at work 15 minutes earlier. This shows punctuality. Also punctuality with regards to if you have told your boss or manager that you will submit a particular report or assignment, anything at all, make sure that you get back to them within that time frame. That's punctuality, and it's highly honored at workplace. The second thing is responsibility. Now, employers really expect employees to take responsibility for their actions, responsibility for the work that they are doing. So never ever try to brush your hands off from the responsibility given to you, and try to do as much as possible to be proactive Try and take as much responsibility and initiative and be a leader with regards to that. The second thing, or rather the third thing with regards to workplace ethics, is having a lot of integrity and loyalty. People who have integrity, now we have another module with regards to integrity, but just to explain you in a little detail right now, integrity is something which is very personal to people. So people should show, or rather their actions and behavior should show people that they are integrity and they also have a lot of loyalty. Never ever share confidential data of the company or organization with outsiders. That's a complete no-no. So make sure that you show with your actions and behavior that you are somebody who has a lot of integrity and somebody who has a lot of loyalty. People should be able to trust you with their words and actions. The next thing and the most important part of workplace ethics is being a good team member. You as an organization or you as an employee will have a lot of team members reporting into you, or you will be working in a lot of teams. Everybody in a team has a different mindset. So be a good team player. Never try to put any team member down with your words and actions, and also try to help your team members as much as you can. If you are going to help them, next time around when you need help, they will also come back to you. So be a good team worker, be a good team player, because that's really honored and valued at workplace. Professionalism, well, I can't really explain this in a lot of detail, but professionalism today is the most sought out kind of a behavior by every employer in the world today. People expect you to be professional. Now, professional with regards to your grooming, your attire at workplace is important, and also professional with regards to your behavior. You need to come across as not somebody who's unprofessional, immature, etc. So be very professional with regards to your etiquette, be very professional with regards to your basic grooming and attire. The next thing is having a positive attitude. Well friends, it's very essential that when you're working in an organization, employers expect you to have a good attitude at work. Well, you might be having a lot of problems at work, you might not get along with another team member, etc. But important thing to understand is have a positive attitude and you will see success coming your way soon. Well friends, the next thing we will discuss with regards to workplace ethics is having commitment to excellence. Well, employers today don't need good employees, they need great and excellent employees. So if you have been assigned a particular task or given a particular project to handle, try and put your heart and soul into it, try and achieve excellence. Instead of just doing it for the heck of doing your job, try to excel at your job, because that is something that will get you into the limelight and people really appreciate hard work as well as smart work. The next thing is with regards to reliability. Well, you need to be shown as somebody who's reliable. Employers, or rather your bosses and managers, should be able to rely on you and give you a task with assurance that you will complete the task in time. So you need to show reliability with regards to your actions, your behavior, your body language. Everything should show that you are confident and reliable as a person or as an employee. Next thing is with regards to being productive. Well friends, everybody gets 24 hours in a day. Nobody gets more or nobody gets less. But yet some people are able to finish all their tasks within that particular stipulated time. With regards to being productive, it's really essential to understand that don't waste your time at work. Don't loiter around, start gossiping with other people, go to the coffee machine and while you're sipping your coffee, you're wasting half an hour, 45 minutes just talking to people randomly. It's important to understand that you need to show yourself as a productive employee, and that is something that will give you essential or really good brownie points. So show yourself as somebody who's productive at work. Try and understand that people really give weightage to those people who are productive at work. Respect is something which is very, very essential at workplace. You need to give respect to get respect, and that's something which is very essential. Try and respect everyone at workplace, be it a peon or office boy to the CEO or MD of the company. Your employees, or rather your team members, also need to be treated with a lot of respect. If you don't give respect to people, you will never get it back, and respect is something that everyone aspires for. So start respecting your people.
There are 5 most common unethical behavior in the workplace. These behavior are: firstly, presumed times of the company. It is actually wrong to alter a timesheet or covers any other employees who shows up late. Secondly, employee fraud. The employee fraud is also on the upticks by not recording the sales for its own benefits or manipulates expenses reimbursements. Thirdly, violating internet policies of the company. Example is the employees visits other websites which is not relevant to their scopes of job in their working time. Fourth, abusive behavior. An individual abusive behavior towards client or colleagues or can be shown as a manager use their power and position to mistreat subordinates. And lastly, lying to employee. This unethical behavior can make employees in the company to lose their trust towards them. Hence, to be an individual professional ethics, those unethical behavior that I have been mentioned before must not be practiced in the workplace. This is because it can affect the dropping in a productivity of the company, lowered morals, and employees' attrition can be leads to the downfall of the company. Code of practice is a set of rules, regulations, or guidelines to explain the behavior of profession members, companies, or any organizations. It helps organizations to comply with its ethical standards. It is also a written rule which explains on how people working in a particular profession should behave. For example, an auto owners are violating a code of practice by dealing with stolen goods. The Code of Professional Conduct referred from Board of Engineers Malaysia (BEM) can be seen on bem.org.my. Here, all the acts and regulations of professional engineers can be understood clearly and clearly stated. To know more about what is the Board of Engineers Malaysia (BEM), you can visit their official website at www.bem.org.my. Here, as you can see, this is the official website of Board of Engineers Malaysia (BEM). All the information regarding to BEM can be gained here. As you can see, this is the menu options available. Here, you can see that there are many submenus available, such as the informations of BEM, the registration of engineering profession according to BEM, the professional practice of the engineering profession, the acts and regulation according to BEM for engineering, the international mobility, resource center, fact, and lastly, the contact informations of BEM. For your information, the Board of Engineers Malaysia (BEM) is a statutory body constituted under the Registration of Engineers Act 1967 with perpetual successions and a common seal which may sue and be sued. It was formed in 23 August 1972. BEM primary rule is to facilitate the registration of engineers, engineering technologies, inspectors of works, sole proprietorships, partnerships, and bodies corporate providing professional engineering services, and to regulate the professional conduct and practice of registered person in order to safeguard the safety and interests of the public. To get the better understanding about what is the Board of Engineers Malaysia BEM, you can go to About Us sub-menu to get the details here. From here, you can see the background of BEM can be read and is well explained. Also, there are other information regarding to BEM, such as the vision and missions of BEM, the client charter, the quality policy of BEM, the compositions of BEM, committees of BEM, its functions, the organization structure, and lastly, the staff directory. Other than that, if you go to registration submenu, here is the content available. As you can see, here is the content available under the registration submenu. Through this, and information regarding to the new registrations of professional engineers can be obtained here. Also, you can read other informations regarding to the renewals and removals from register, reinstatements, accreditations, examination, trainings and education, BEM register directory, e-payment, and lastly the online service. The details regarding to the professional practice in engineering professions can be obtained from the professional practice submenu here. As can be read here, BEM is assisted by the Professional Practice Committee in matter pertaining to professional conduct and ethics of engineering professions. It is responsible to hear and determine disputes relating to professional conduct or ethics of registered person, or to appoint a committee or arbitrator or arbitrators to hear and determine such disputes. You can also read other related notes regarding to professional practice in engineering provided here, such as the circulars and guidelines, public notice, complaint against engineers, the shareholder, certificate of completions and compliance, scale of fees, and lastly, hearing decisions. Next, the Act and Regulations of Engineering Profession according to Board of Engineers Malaysia can be obtained here through the Act and Regulations submenu. Here, you can see that there are many acts and regulations available that should be known by engineers to be an ethical and knowledgeable engineers. So, let's go through a little bit on the Act and registration here. Firstly, Registrations of Engineers Act 1967. Here, the document is available to be read and downloaded freely by the public. Same goes to the Registrations of Engineers Regulations 1990. All the documents are available to be downloaded freely. the Registration of Engineers Act 1967 and the Registrations of Engineers Regulation 1990 has been amended in 2015 with date of operation on 31st July 2015. The amended REA will be known as Registrations of Engineers Act 1967, which is revised on 2015, whilst the accompanying regulation will be known as the Registrations of Engineers Regulations 1990, which is also revised in 2015. These latest amendments are the direct results of government's policies on trades for services. As Malaysia develops towards a service industries, the issues of liberalization of the service came to the forefront in the Free Trade Agreements (FTA) which the country signed. These latest amendments directly address liberalization issues in order for the country to meet its international obligation. The need of regulate the engineering team, which is engineers, engineering technologies, and engineering technician, has also led to BEM to amend the REA, incorporate two new categories, which is engineering technologies and inspector of works, which is also known as the engineering technicians. Other than that, there are also information regarding to the Code of Professional Conduct. When you click the Code of Professional Conduct, you can see that from here, you can get a better understanding regarding to the Code of Conduct of registered persons according to BEF. This Code of Conduct is available to be downloaded freely. This code shows and explains how engineers should behave. Other than that, we can see that there are many acts and regulations available to be read by engineer profession, such as firstly, the Street Drainage and Building Act 1974, secondly, the Uniform Buildings Bylaw, thirdly, the Water Service Industry Act 2006, the Town and Country Planning Act 172, the Fire Services Act 1988, the Electric Supply Act 1990, Gas Supply Act 1993, and lastly, the Malaysian Standard according to BEM. As a summary, from this website, there are many informations from Boards of Engineers Malaysia that can be obtained by engineers. This will give the guidelines to engineers to do their work accordingly to the engineer's ethical standard. All these acts and regulations are important to avoid engineering failures. All these acts and regulations are important to avoid an engineering failure. To know better about what is engineering failure, let's see this.
If you want to see how bad an engineering failure can be, look no further than the Kansas City Hyatt Regency collapse. In July of 1980, the Hyatt Regency Hotel in Kansas City, Missouri, was showing off its new multi-story atrium. decked out with 2 levels of suspended walkways. These walkways were supported by beams which were supposed to be held up by long rods hanging from the ceiling. To even the load and reduce the stress on each beam, the walkways were supposed to have a single rod extending all the way through them. But something happened between the initial design stage and the actual building of the atrium. When the builders had some difficulty putting it together, the system was modified to have 2 separate shorter rods instead of a single longer one. This design change meant that the upper rod had to not only support the weight of the walkway that it held up, but also the one below it, essentially doubling the load. During a party about a year after the atrium opened, these beams failed and the 2 walkways collapsed, killing 114 people and injuring 216 others. In terms of lost lives, it was one of the most devastating structural failures in US history. A lot went wrong, much of it caused by poor oversight and bad communication. A formal review of the change design never happened, strength calculations were never performed, work was subcontracted out, and the engineer on record put their seal on the design without personally checking everything. It all could have been prevented if only they'd followed the engineer's code of ethics. There are a couple of different ones out there, but today we'll use the code of ethics from the American Society of Civil Engineers, or ASCE. Their code of ethics has 8 distinct principles, the first being hold safety paramount. This means that your chief concern as an engineer needs to be the health and welfare of the public. The rule goes on to say that you should only approve designs that are determined to be safe and that conform with accepted engineering standards. The fact that there weren't any calculations done on the design changes to the walkway and that the engineer on duty approved the designs without properly checking them clearly goes against this principle. That's why the Committee of Professional Conduct that reviewed the case ruled that the engineer had violated their code and suspended them from the society for 3 years. If you take a look at the rest of the code, you can see some other useful rules about how engineers should approach a problem. The second rule is to service with competence, which means that you should only work in areas that you're skilled in. If you're not an electrical engineer, you shouldn't be messing with the wires in a building. The third states that you should always issue true statements. Basically, don't lie. Then comes the need to act as a faithful agent for each of your employers or clients and avoid conflicts of interest. One of your jobs shouldn't cause you to sabotage another. There's also the rule of reputation by merit, which means your reputation is built up by the work that you do and not by unfair means. That goes hand in hand with the requirement to uphold professional honour, where you act with integrity and have a zero-tolerance policy for bribery, fraud, or any sort of corruption. The 7th rule is to continue professional development, and it's one of the most important for the long-term growth of society in the engineering field. You need to not only foster your own development as an engineer, but that of other engineers as well. You always need to report what happens, no matter the consequences. And finally, the 8th rule is to treat all persons fairly, which is really just a good mantra for life. Now, codes are great, but they're not perfect. People can and do break the rules, and codes can't always address every situation. They may need to be updated as society and technology advance.
Licensure can be defined as a restricted practice or a restrictions on the use of the occupational titles that requires a license. A license to carry on a certain activity, such as driving a car, is the license created under a Practice Act. The other license is created under a Titles Act, which is given to any professions that requires the license to represent his or her credibility in the fields of professions. Anyone who is found guilty in misuse a license or practicing without a license may carry criminals or civil penalties depending on the types of law. License is given by a professional bodies or a license board consists of practitioners who supervise the applications for license. It actually depends on the profession where the accredited examinations and trainings are different in each country. It is mandatory for university graduate to register as a graduate engineer if he or she wants to take up employment as a graduate engineer. This is accordance with Section 7.2a, which specifies that a graduate engineer who is registered with the board may, subject to a Section 8, take up employment which requires him to perform professional engineering service. A graduate engineer is a person registered under Section 10(1) of the Registrations of Engineers Act 1967. According to Section 7(1)(b), a graduate engineer will be entitled to describe himself or holds himself out under any name, styles, or title using the abbreviations grade engineers after his names or in any way associated with his name. The qualification registrations as a graduate engineer with BEM is under Section 10(1). A graduate engineering student who holds any qualifications in engineering fields that is recognized by Board of Engineers Malaysia (BEM) shall be entitled on applications to be registered as a graduate engineer. The academic qualification that has been recognized as a graduate engineer with BEM is, firstly, degree of engineering awarded by Malaysia. The engineering degree get accredited by Engineering Accreditation Councils (EAC). EAC accreditations is to ensure that the engineering graduates from any university satisfies the minimum academic requirements to be registered as a graduate engineers with BEM. The latest list of accredited engineering program in Malaysia is available in a EAC website at www.eac.org.my. Now, let's take a look on the official websites of Engineering Accreditation Council (EAC). In order to do so, we search for www.eac.org.my. As you can see here, this is the official website of EAC. For your information, the Engineering Accreditation Council (EAC) is a delegated body by the Boards of Engineers Malaysia (BEM) as the only recognized accrediting body for engineering degree programs offered in Malaysia. From this website, the information regarding to EAC is clearly stated and can be understood. The membership of EAC comprises 5 stakeholders, namely, firstly, the Boards of Engineers (BEM), the Institutions of Engineers Malaysia (IEM), thirdly, the industrial employers, next, the Malaysian Qualification Agency (MQA), and the Public Service Department (JPA). The EAC has provided leaderships and quality assurance in engineering higher education since 2000. The EAC accredits 190 programs at 26 institutions of higher learnings (IHL) nationwide. As you can see, here is the list of accredited engineering program in Malaysia from EAC website. There are totals of 54 universities. The EAC accreditations is actually important to ensure students to choose a correct college or university that grade accreditations from EAC. Besides, accreditations gives universities and college systems to evaluate, access, and improvise their qualities of programs. In addition, it also helps employers in recruiting graduates they are well prepared. There are actually 55 universities accredited engineering program in Malaysia. Now I will show to you the course subjects that need to be taken depending on your respective engineering fields in college years to be able to be registered as a graduate engineer. There are 4 types of engineering course, which is electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, civil engineering, and also chemical engineering. Table here shows the requirements of electrical course subject that needs to be taken by electrical engineering graduate engineer during their college years. As you can see here, there is information regarding on the subject and also the recommended credits hour for each subject. There are 5 course subjects that need to be taken by them, including firstly, circuit theory with 2 credit hours recommended. Secondly, electromagnetic field theory with 2 credit hours recommended. Thirdly, electrical machines with 2 credit hours recommended. Fourthly, drives or power electronics with 2 credit hours recommended. And lastly, electrical power system or high voltage technology with 3 credit hours recommended. All these 5 course subjects should give a recommended credits hours of 11 hours. It is also noted here that the subject of circuit theory and electromagnetic field theory can be replaced with a subject in electromagnetic field and circuit theory with 3 credit hours recommended. Other than that, the electrical machines and drive or power electronics may be replaced with a subject in machines and drive with 3 credit hours recommended. Lastly, the electrical power system or high voltage technology may be included with other subject named electrical engineering or energy conversions with 3 credit hours recommended. Table here tabulates the requirements of mechanical course subject that need to be taken in order to be a graduate engineer in mechanical engineering. As you can see here, there is an information for the subject and also the recommended credit hours for each subject. There are 5 course subjects including firstly, static and dynamics with 6 credit hour recommended. Secondly, thermodynamics with 6 credit hours recommended. Thirdly, fluid mechanics with 6 credit hours recommended. Fourthly, materials with 3 credit hours recommended. And lastly, mechanical design with 3 credit hours recommended. All these must give a total credit hours of 24 hours. Table here represents the requirements of civil course subject that must be taken to register as a graduate engineers for civil engineering. As you can see here, that there is an information regarding on the subject and also the recommended credit hours for each subject. 5 subjects are listed as a course subject, including firstly, strength of materials with 3 credit hours recommended. Secondly, fluid mechanics or hydraulics with 3 credit hours recommended. Thirdly, civil engineering with 3 credit hours recommended. Fourthly, soil mechanic or geotechnical engineering with 3 credit hours recommended. And lastly, structural analysis and design with 9 credit hours recommended. All these must given a total credit hours recommended of 21 hours. Table here shows the requirement course subject for chemical that must be taken for registration as a graduate engineer in chemical engineering. As you can see here that there is also an information regarding of the subject and also the recommended credit hours for each subject. There are 6 subjects listed in the table as a course subject. The subjects are firstly reactor designs and chemicals kinetics with 2 credit hours recommended for each. Secondly, process design with 3 credit hours recommended. Thirdly, chemical thermodynamics with 3 credit hours recommended. Fourthly, separation process with 3 credit hours recommended. Fifth, materials and energy balance with 3 credit hours recommended. And lastly, heat and transfer with 6 credit hours recommended. All these recommended credit hours must give a total credit hours of 22 hours. Second academic qualification recognized by BEM as graduate engineers is having a degree of engineering awarded by other country. The engineering degree from overseas will be recognized if the country is one of the signatory members of Washington's Accords WA. The EAC will recognize engineering program based on recognitions given by the accrediting body, which is a professional body of that particular country. In any case where the country is only a provisional member of the Washington's Accords WA, the EAC will then recognize the program a case-by-case basis of recognitions given by the accrediting body, which is a professional body of the country. Table here shows the signatory countries or territories with their accreditation bodies and the years of admission. As you can see here, there is 3 parts, which is firstly the country and territories, secondly the accreditation bodies for each country, and thirdly the year of admissions of the accreditation body. As you can see here, there are so many countries and territories including Australia, Canada, China, Hong Kong, India, Ireland, Japan, Korea, Malaysia, New Zealand, Pakistan, Peru, Russia, Singapore, South Africa, Sri Lanka, Taiwan, Turkey, United Kingdoms, and lastly, United States. As you can see here, Malaysia is one of the signatory members and the years of admission was in 2009. As you can see, for Malaysia, the accreditation body is named as Board of Engineers Malaysia. Here you can see the type of accreditation body for each country. For example, for Hong Kong, their accreditation bodies is called as the Hong Kong Institution of Engineers. And also for Russia, their accreditation body is Associations of Engineering Educations of Russia. And you can also see the accreditation body for United Kingdoms is Engineering Councils. A part of the listed country before, there are also countries with temporary signatory status. So, table here shows the countries with temporary signatory status with their accreditation bodies. As you can see here, this is the information regarding on the countries and territories while this is the information regarding on the accreditation bodies for each countries and territories. The countries and territories are including Bangladesh, Chile, Costa Rica, Mexico, and Philippines. The following countries have permanently signatory status and may become a member signatories in the future.
Lastly, graduates engineer with degrees in engineering technology. Graduate students in engineering technology degree are qualified for registrations as an engineering technologist. According to a Washington's Accord, a similar agreement, which is Sydney Accord SA, was developed for incorporated engineers or engineering technologies. In this accord, the accredited qualifications by other signatories are recognized by each signatories are being substantially equivalent to accredited qualifications as the practice of engineering technology at appropriate levels within the engineering team. According to BEM, there is a procedure that needs to be taken to register as an engineering technologist.
Table here shows the procedure of registration as an engineering technologist in Malaysia. As you can see here, this is the requirement that should be met by engineer, and this is the Malaysian and also non-Malaysian that want to register as an engineering technologist in Malaysia. As you can see here, we will briefly explain about the requirements and also the action that should be taken by Malaysian and non-Malaysian. For first requirement, which is the application method, you can see here that for non-Malaysian and also Malaysian, all application shall be in manual, which is at Form A2. Secondly, for registration, the supporting documents is needed. All supporting documents must be submitted with Certified of Professional Engineers PE recognized by BEM for Malaysian and also non-Malaysian. While the supporting document needed for Malaysian is firstly degree scroll or official transcript, diploma scrolls and official transcript if any, and lastly identification cards. While for non-Malaysian, the supporting documents needed is firstly degree scroll and official transcript, diploma scroll and official transcript if any, identification cards, and lastly permanent resident and or password. Other than that, the requirements for registration is payment. Payment accompanied with a non-refundable processing fee for the amount of RM50 ringgit payable to BEM for Malaysian and also non-Malaysian. While for Malaysian, the mode of payment can be made through firstly, money order or postal order, secondly, bank draft or cheque, thirdly, online payment which is via Maybank to you or RHB or CIMB Click, and lastly, PIN and Pay which is through credit or debit card at counter only. While for non-Malaysian, the mode of payments including firstly, telegraphic transfer, secondly, bank draft, thirdly, PIN and Pay which is credit or debit card at counter only. Other than that, the requirements is foreign university. For Malaysian and non-Malaysian, the certified copy of the degree certificate from a foreign university which is not in English language shall be accompanied with a translation of in English or Bahasa Malaysia. Other than that, the requirements is the complete forms. For Malaysian and non-Malaysian, The complete application with supporting documents will only be processed and submitted to BEM for approvals. Next, the process of time. Every complete application for registration shall be decided by BEM within 4 months from the date of receipt of each application. This applies for Malaysian and also non-Malaysian. Lastly, the requirements for registration is issuing of certificate. For Malaysian and non-Malaysian, once approval, a letter or certificate of registration as an engineering technologist will be issued. There are also declarations to be signed by applicants. The declarations are: firstly, the applicant must declare that he or she agrees to comply with the following. A. The Registrations of Engineers Act 1967 and the Registrations of Engineering Regulations 1990. B. Notifications and circulars issued by BEM. 2. Authorize BEM to seek clarifications for any information submitted in manners and by any means as it deems fit and proper. Malaysia is a signatory to a Washington's Accords. This agreement was made between engineering education's accrediting bodies at the international levels. It recognizes which programs that satisfy the academic requirements at professional levels for the practice of engineering. All the engineering degree must be accredited by professional bodies that are signatories to Washington's Accords. Engineering Accreditation Councils (EAC) in Malaysia consists of Boards of Engineers Malaysia (BEM), Institutions of Engineering Malaysia (IEM), Jabatan Perkhidmatan Awam (JPA), and Malaysia's Qualifications Agency (MQA) is a body of accrediting engineering program offered by local university. Anyone will get penalty and will be punished under Section 24A of the Registrations of Engineers Act 1967, which explains that any persons, sole proprietorships, partnerships, or corporate body who procures or attempts to procure registrations or certificates of registrations under these acts by no willingly producing, making, or causing to be made or produced by any false or fraudulent declarations, applications, certificate, or representations, whether in a writings or otherwise, shall be guilty of an offence and shall convictions be liable to a fine not exceeding 3 years or both. All universities and colleges in Malaysia has been informed about the acceptable years for BEM's accreditations or recognitions. 3 years durations of study in engineering programs for accreditations will not be acceptable. Only 4 or more years of studies in engineering programs will be accredited by EAC. However, for unrecognized engineering degree holders in Malaysia, BEM provide a pathway to get accredited as a graduate engineers. There are 2 options to be taken to be a graduate engineer. Firstly, pursuing a master program taught course. He and she can complete a master programs that is related to the engineering disciplines. Subjects that need to be taken in the master program must enhance the subjects that is taken in Bachelor's of Engineering's HON. It is noted that 3 years degrees programs will still remain as unrecognized although the holder have achieved the degrees of master. All documents need to be submitted for BEM assessments before taking up master programs. The board will advise the graduates on the subjects that need to be taken and explain on the credits hour. The following list are the documents that need to be submitted to BEM, including firstly, degree scrolls, secondly, official transcript, and lastly, the details on the engineering master such as the course contents, subjects and durations. Second, take a top-up course or subjects. In these sections, subjects to be taken are the subjects that are not be taken by the graduate in their university. Hence, the graduate need to top up a few lacking subjects in any other listed university such in section 4.2.1 that offering recognized degree by the Engineering's Accredited Councils EAC Malaysia. Graduate is required to submit the degrees holds and official transcripts before taking up the top-up programs to BEM for assessments. The board will advise the graduates in the subjects to be taken and explain the credits hour for graduates' informations. Throughout this chapter, it describes about professional codes of practice that should be implemented into the society engineerings. This engineering ethics is the moral principles that need to be applied on the practice of engineerings. Hence, the engineers will become a skillful engineers. Furthermore, it is an inescapable duty of an engineer to maintain the prestigious of the professions according to the professional ethics. So, every members of professions must follow it to become a best organizations. Accordingly, the ethical principles for engineers while working in the engineering professions require fairness and equality, honesty, and also must be dedicated to the protections of safety and public health. Well, this is all about the responsibilities of engineers to the society. Engineers must be responsible on everything occurs if they are not follows these principles wisely. For example, if engineers do a dangerous work without using the safety shoes, helmet, and so on, then if anything happen or accident occurred during that time, they have to be responsible to themselves. So, to deter from any problems occurrence, a graduate engineer needs to follow the professional ethics of engineering professions. This ethics can apply to engineering practice where apply the professional ethics to the society. I have explained to you about 3 things, which is introductions, professional codes of practice, and also listenings and registrations. Based on my explanations, I hope you got a better understanding for each subtopics. That's all from me. Thank you for watching and hearing my video presentations.